Today's episode is sponsored by Billy Keel's Advisory Services. If you want to learn more about how to make your 99 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com.
Helping you build freedom without losing your edge. This is the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels.
Now, it's not every single day that I get a chance to, speak to somebody that I completely and utterly admire, not just for the person that he is, the leader that he is, but also the fact of the matter is that this gentleman has done so many different things with such passion, actually so much so that he's going to tell us how he potentially, maybe, we don't know, how he lost maybe 50% of the hearing in one of his ears because of the passion that he had. Today, this guy, he has done so many different things. He had a passion project. He was working, he was doing things. I'm not going to steal his thunder. But today he's really focused on being able to help to not only protect your property, people, and your purse. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, not only the commercial advisor, he is also the owner of the Shine Insurance Agency. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jeremy Goodrich. Welcome to the show, man.
Billy, thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here. I love you so much. As you know, we've been through lots of things together. We talk business a lot, and to be able to talk with it with your listeners and the folks who are listening to the show and really just bring some insight into my journey, where I've been, where I'm at now, and how I got here, and how I learned so many things from it. I'm excited, and thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And you're actually, I have to tell you this, you're like in very rarefied air. Why do I say that? Because there's so few people that have actually been here on this plateau with me twice. I can only think of a handful of people. My sons, of course, are ahead of everybody because they've been here now 4 times and they're going for their 5th time coming up soon. Maybe it's 5. Yeah. So I'm super excited about that. But, I want everybody to get to know you, especially because of what you have been able to not only achieve, but the transformation in life that you've also had and being a business owner today. But right from the very beginning, I kind of let a little bit of the cat out of the bag in terms of being able to follow your passion. But you are today in the business of, and I said it in the very beginning, of being able to help others manage risk. But help us understand, what was it that called you to serve others, to help them manage risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what called me to serve others, I've always had sort of that an element of me, right? My dad's a preacher. I grew up in a evangelical Christian church, right? Like there's very much like this service idea, sacrifice of self, service to others. Certainly in managing risk and navigating insurance, I'm not sacrificing myself per se. I've built a very nice life for myself and my family that fits the needs that I have and where I'm at. But that idea of service was ingrained from the beginning, whether that was through sports, playing soccer, baseball, tennis, things like that, or whether that was through just being the son of a preacher and seeing that. I grew up and became an elementary school teacher for 13 years, which, as you know, I absolutely loved and really just enjoyed teaching, right? So that was another role where it was about educating. And it was sort of, money was almost, scarcity when it came to money was almost a badge of honor, right? Like, I made for 13 years, I made $27,500 a year, right? And so I built up credit card debt. There was a lot of going on with not having money, but I was educating, I was teaching, I was helping kids, become better and fulfill their aspirations and all those kinds of things. And so when I switched over to insurance, and risk management, I think one of the things was just, I'm broke, man. Like I don't have, I'm not making any money. I can't sustain the life I want to live. And this transition makes a lot of sense. My wife and business partner had a long history of being in the risk management and insurance world. And so we sort of tapped into that. And really one of the things I had to navigate in that transition was a lot of my own mentalities around money and, that scarcity in a lot of ways was, like I said, a badge of honor. And so how do you shift to saying, you know what, I want to make money. I think money is an important part of a successful life. And I think I've been able to transition without making it all about money, right? With still being able to educate and help people grow their businesses in ways that they wouldn't be able to if they hadn't, deferred risk to an insurance company or whatever. And we'll go into all that kind of stuff. But I think that the big message around that transition was like, look, I'm transitioning because I'm broke, but how can I make this new part of me have the balance between money and meaning in life? And I think in essence, all of us are trying to find that balance between money and meaning.
I love that whole concept of money and meaning, right? And as I listen to you talk about I mean, you're very clear and say, hey, look, you're earning $27,500 a year, et cetera, et cetera. And you're thinking, okay, well, yeah, but we have so many people that are probably listening and watching us now that are in the enterprise software space, right? And they are probably earning 10, some of them 15, 20 times that,
Right.
the top achievers. And at the same time, I know a lot of people that because of the life and the lifestyle that they have, like kind of keeping up with the Joneses, you're familiar with that one. They can even be earning 10 times more, but they may be broke at the end of the month. So it goes back to one of the things that you were saying in terms of mindset. And so from money to meaning, I'd really love for you to talk to us about what is one of the ways that you actually began to start to say, hey, look, you're in a profession where you were able to serve others as you wanted to, as you'd seen growing up. And then there was the opportunity to say, yeah, you know what, I'm broke, and you wanted to be able to do something else. A lot of times there's a lot of feelings that go with making changes and transitions. Can you talk to us about, was it all easy? Was it all simple? Or did you kind of go through a couple moments of, oof, this doesn't necessarily feel so good?
Yeah. And I think you're exactly right. I had a lot of meaning in my life and I needed some money. Right. And a lot of your listeners may have a lot of money and they need some meaning. Right. Or that maybe that meaning comes from freedom. They want to have more time with their kids. They want to be able to spend more time at home going to baseball games and stuff. That's as much meaning as there is. Right. But they can't do that because they're out there making money. And so that balance is the thing that we're all looking for. And I think that when you decide to jump, right, you say, hey, I got plenty of money, but I don't have any meaning. Or in my case, I got plenty of meaning, but I don't have any money. Then you decide to take that transition. And for us, both my wife and I left our jobs and started a business from scratch. We didn't have any money coming in. We didn't buy a business that was already running. We literally started from scratch, knowing that we weren't going to make a ton of money at the beginning, but we would be able to build off of that. And I think that jump, I don't know what amazing insights I have about it. I think at some point you just know it's the right choice for you, Billy. I know you knew it was the right choice at some point. It was like when you missed that birthday, that story that you tell so often. It was like, hey, I got plenty of money, but the meaning is way down here and I got to solve that problem, right? Like there's some key moment for us. My wife was working at an insurance agency that sold to kind of a hedge fund conglomerate. And that was the moment where she was like, hey, I don't want to work for some big corporation. I want to work for myself. How can we change? So that was kind of the transition moment. And it was, in some ways it was hard, but in other ways, I mean, I already told you what I was making. So it wasn't like I went down by much, and so, but it was so liberating to have the freedom to be able to build your own systems, to be able to build your own business, to be able to really make the dreams you have come true. Even if, insurance isn't necessarily like a dreamy type of deal, right? I wasn't getting a movie contract or flying an airplane. But it was really the ability to control my own life that I think was the most valuable.
And so that is such a powerful word. And I believe that so many people that I speak to today, it's looking for, we'll talk about freedom a lot. And at the same time, it's like the being able to control your schedule, being able to dedicate time, effort, and energy to those that you love the most when you can, without worrying about asking your boss, because now it's you, and you talked about you and your wife that are doing that. But you also said one other word, and I'm just curious because I go back and forth with this whole thing. We're looking for balance. And the reason I say that is because I believe that when you're a high achiever, balance is a really hard thing, Jeremy. Like I think I was frustrated for such a long time because I was looking for balance, but it was actually, I think what I've started thinking about is it's harmony, because it's more about, and I say harmony meaning that I'm agreeing with myself and partner, or that when I'm on, I'm on. And that means with the family, with work, because so few people that I know that are high achievers like yourself, and you talk about your wife and building a business, that you truly can find balance. So I'm just curious, when I talk about harmony versus balance, do you find, or have you ever found that is a challenge when you're a business owner?
I think absolutely. I think it's a challenge no matter what choices you made in your life, right? And I think harmony, balance, I think they both work, right? It's like, I'll give you an example. Sunday mornings, right? I wake up and, we oftentimes, Mackenzie, that's like the time to just chill, right? It's like the time to rejuvenate, to just hang, to not have anything to do. Well, I am incapable of not having anything to do. Like it just doesn't work for my brain, right? So you could say, and probably a lot of your high achieving listeners are saying, yeah, I'm in the same way. And so it's like, so should I figure out how to be cool just sitting and watching TV for 4 hours? Maybe, I guess, but there's, you could also be cool, like taking your kid out in the backyard and hitting some balls, or mowing the yard, which I love to do and spent most of my life mowing people's yards. Like, I think that you don't have to change who you are to find harmony. Yeah. It's do you find is your entire sense of being, is your entire way you're doing things focused on work? Is it just that you have to be out there? You can adjust to having harmony, even if it means you're going all the time. Now, I don't know, maybe that's not the best way to think about it. I like to go all the time. I just don't, I'm not great at stopping. But I don't have to go all the time at work. I can find a balance in that way.
Yeah. And this is, you're describing, because it is one of those things. It's like we've been, like, there are just some people who enjoy working, and that's okay. And when you're not working, it's okay just to relax, spend time, you're investing time with family, or maybe you're out on the golf course, or maybe you are just walking around, which I think is fantastic. Would you mind if I kind of ask you a couple of things that I know happens to be a superpower for you? And I love it. Let's do it. And a lot of times when you are in your corporate role and you're thinking, hey, I want to be able to do something else, and you're thinking about bringing in, you got to get clients, and the clients bring revenue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all that's true. And I also spent 16 years working for a very large software company that helps businesses with business process, enterprise business processes. I happen to know that you've got a superpower in terms of being able to help businesses not just mitigate risk, but also to be able to give insight into run more efficiently. Now, so much to the point that you've got almost 20,000 people that watch you on YouTube, because you're helping them not only be able to, mitigate risk, but you're doing it in a way that's very efficient. Can you talk to us a bit about how you've found driving efficiencies in your business allows you to serve more people?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is kind of one of the core pieces, because as your listeners, maybe you're thinking about taking that leap, right? Whatever your off balance issue is, you want to take a leap, you want to start a business, you want to be an entrepreneur. I think how you take actions at the core of that. Most of the time we start doing that work before we quit our job. If we ever do quit our job, lots of people have a side business and don't leave their business, their job, and that's perfectly fine, right? Yep. But what we start doing is we start thinking through it. Okay, I have this passion, I have this thing I want to do. How do I go about it? And to me, the core systems are so important. And I'm going to get a little nerdy here, but I promise if your listeners just go through this and say, hey, am I doing this? It's going to elevate the systems in what you do. Starting really simple, almost every business is broken into 3 parts. It's broken into marketing, sales, and operations. Right? This is basic business 101. You've got to go out and, yell in the megaphone, hey, here I am. Here's the thing I do. Then someone says, hey, I'd like to take you up on the thing you do. You have a process of walking them through, making sure it's the right fit for them. And then once they've taken the action, become a customer, a client, whatever your business is, you have to take great care of them so that they become raving fans and start telling everybody else about you, right? That's the flywheel. That's the process. It's just marketing, sales, and operations.
Mhm.
And that sounds really simple, but it's the top of the concept that I have here. And that is everything breaks down into smaller systemic parts as you look at your business, right? So we
Mhm.
got marketing, we got sales, we got operations. From there, you want to break it down into specific processes, right? When someone, if I have a client and that person owns a business and they bought two new big semi trucks for their trucking company, right? They're going to
Mhm.
call me up and say, "Hey, JG, I've got a couple new trucks, and I need to add them to my policy." So that's called an endorsement, right? So we
Mhm.
have an entire workflow that's just called the endorsement workflow. Our business has 10 processes on one side, one vertical of our business, and 10 processes that are pretty much the exact same thing on the
Mhm.
other vertical of our business. For all of your listeners, as you go into marketing, sales, and operations, start with operations because operations is kind of the easiest, right?
Mhm.
What are the repetitions? What is the repetitious things you will be doing? Okay, great. Break them into maybe there's 5 for your business. There's 10 for mine. I think you get too much above 10, we start to get a little bit too complicated here. Are you with me, Billy? I've
I,
got 2 more steps from there.
I'm following you. I'm following you. Keep
Okay.
going.
So then inside of each of those processes, you've got to break them down into 3 phases, right?
Mhm.
So it's real easy. Phase 1 is set the thing up. Phase 2 is do the thing. Phase 3, make sure the thing got done.
Mhm.
Set the thing up, do the thing, make sure the thing got done. So inside of my endorsement workflow or adding that truck, those semi trucks, I got to set it up in the system to make sure it happens, right?
Yep.
And then somebody's got to do it. Someone's got to add the truck to the policy and make sure that it got added and make sure the cards get sent to the client and they know that they have the right coverage so that if something bad happens to that semi truck, all that. And then somebody has to make sure on the back end that it actually did get added to the policy, that the company did what they were supposed to do, that everything's put in place, that it was paid for, right? Set the thing up, do the thing, make sure the thing got done. And the last phase or the last step in this organizational process is simple checklists inside of each of those parts that just says, do this, do this, do this, do this, right? In
Mhm.
phase 1 of the endorsement workflow, I'm going to say, here's the 7 steps you have to take every single time. And so many new entrepreneurs have all this stuff in their head, right? Well, Billy, as you've built businesses, right? Like it's
Yep.
all in your head and you're doing it. And so if you set this up and you start making it into a checklist, you realize, oh, wow, I'm doing all these things repetitiously. And oh, there's this one thing that I forget all the time. I remember it when I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, darn it, I forgot that thing, right? Well, now I need to make sure that's in the process, that's in the workflow. And now I won't forget it anymore. I've been using this system for the 13 years I've been running this business. And in the first year, it was terrible because I was just building it, right? Like now we're 13 years in
Yeah.
and every single person on our team uses these workflows. And most of us have it fairly memorized. We just do all the stuff. We do do all things, but we always come back to the workflow. We always check it off. I think about flying an airplane, right?
Yep.
When you're getting into an airplane, you're going to take off and anything goes wrong, you're going to die basically because you're going to fall out of the air. You're going to make sure that every single box is checked. That's how it works. And so my advice to all of your folks who are thinking about jumping is start building that system out, right?
Mhm.
And just, it's the 3 different parts of your flywheel, and it's the processes that you go through and repeat, and then it's the phases: set the thing up, do the thing, make sure the thing got done, and then it's the checklist inside of that. And I think any business really sets themselves up to not only succeed, but then to train other people to do the things, and that's what really makes it scalable.
Yeah, when you talk about the flywheel and scalability, and I know that as the Going Along family is listening to you talk about this, you're talking about team members, and so that means growth, and also being able to grow in the way that makes sense for you as a business owner, right? And maybe not everybody wants to have multiple team members or a larger team, Jeremy, like you have, but it's about being able to follow the steps that Jeremy talks about. So think about your business, whether it's marketing, sales, operations. And then from there, you think about actually the specific processes, and either you're going to set it up, you're going to do the thing, and then you're going to follow up and make sure the thing gets done. And then from there, you got your specific checklist to make sure that, just like when you're flying on a plane, things get done because Well, you know what? As you build your business, things don't happen perfectly the first time. They usually get a lot better over time. You talked about your business being there 13 years. Year one's usually not the best. It can be pretty good. It's just like the very first podcast. If I go back and listen to that very first podcast nowadays, I go, "What in the world?" But
not great.
it was great. Yeah, but it was great for the moment, right?
Yeah.
and you move from there. So you've also talked about another thing, right? This is because you're talking about team, and as you have a team that's successfully serving, different, because you have different aspects of your business. There's a lot of different decisions that you have to make during the time that you have that passion. Let's say you're working in your job, and then you start to think about the things that, Jeremy, that you're talking about, and you're thinking about the marketing, you're thinking about the sales, you're thinking about the ops, but you're also thinking, well, like, where do I want to serve people? Because nowadays I'm literally sitting in Spain, and you and I are talking, and you're back in the US, and I have clients that are all over the place. And I know you've gone through that as well. Like when you're thinking, okay, well, how do you making those decisions? Because there's so much of a global marketplace that we can now serve. And then there's also ways that you can be hyper specifically and serve, like I could just walk around the corner and only serve people that are on my street. Talk to us a little bit about what that has meant to you and the great opportunity versus a focus on a specific area. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I've gone through a huge evolution over the course of the last 13 years and ultimately ended up back where I started, essentially. And so we really focused when we started on local. I'm in Bloomington, Indiana, here in the Midwest of the United States. And we focused on local. We were all about Bloomington. We were serving Bloomington. We were, taking care of businesses in Bloomington. And then the pandemic hit in 2020. And I really was thinking to myself, what can I do here that's different than I could have done before? And what I realized is everyone suddenly was used to a virtual world. And so I could build, and what I did build was a national program for risk management and insurance associated with commercial real estate all over the United States of America. And we have clients all over the United States that have large commercial properties. And we're very proud of that program. And I built it because my question was, what's different now that we're all sitting in our houses than was before? And it was like, well, we were stuck on Zoom. We're learning this Zoom thing. Okay, what can I do? And I built a program on LinkedIn. That's where I met you, Billy, and just started building this process on LinkedIn to meet people, connect with people, invite people to come on my podcast, as you're doing right now, and then ultimately build networks and relationships that ended up in business processes. And so I went to really a national level, and that treated me really, really well. And that still exists. Although now my heart is kind of returning to local. In the last year, I've really said, okay, that was fun. I'm going to continue taking care of my clients that I already have and be excited to take care of them. But I'm not going to market out into the national world anymore. I'm really going to market myself right here in local Bloomington. And so I've kind of come back full circle, and I feel great about the decision. But they're different games, right? A national program is one game, and a local program is a totally different game. And I think I enjoy the challenge of doing both.
Yeah, and this is one of the other things, right? Because it sounds like where you start isn't necessarily where you finish, but also too, as a business owner, you're constantly looking at the opportunities that are in the marketplace, right? It made sense at a certain point, as you talked about, there was a global pandemic, and you were also looking for specific opportunities to solve. You were looking to solve problems related to risk mitigation and risk management. And so, but you also mentioned one other thing that I think I want to make you talk a little bit about it, please, please, please. Because one of the ways that you are also impacting others and positively sharing and educating is you talked about your podcast. I happen to like podcasts because, well, like I said, you and I are here on a podcast. They're watching us, they're listening to us. How has the podcast played a role? And can you give yourself a little bit of pub, please?
Absolutely. So I have two shows. One is called Scratch Entrepreneur, a show about starting a business from scratch and building it into a healthy, profitable business. The other show is CRE Clarity, all about commercial real estate, interviewing some of the biggest investors in the country and everyone around them. And so those are the two shows. And the concept, I believe that podcasting is the number one way to build your network, period. There is no better way to build your network than having a podcast. One, it's very easy, fairly easy to do once you get it set up. And two, a lot of times when we're thinking about how to sell something, or we're like, okay, well, if I sell risk management and insurance, right? If I go to someone down the street and say, hey, so and so, I know you don't know me from a fly on the wall, but I really want to sell you some insurance. Are you interested in talking? I'd be like, dude, no, I have no interest in talking to you at all. But if I go to someone, I say, look, hey, I know you don't know me from a fly on the wall, but I love your story. You've built an incredible business in this community. I would love to be able to tell your story on a show that I have, a platform that I have that a lot of folks listen to. I'll just come ask you a bunch of questions. You can tell your story, talk about your evolution, and really, think about how you've built your business and get that out there. Are you open to that? Everyone says yes. Everyone says yes because people want to talk about themselves. Yeah. And so by having a podcast, by having a platform, you're able to say to someone, hey, I would love to tell your story. I would love to hear your story. Now, for one, that's just great because you're getting their story out. For two, you're learning a lot from other business owners and growing, inside your world, your network, the places you want to be. But for three, you get 45 minutes of one-on-one time with a person that you feel is valuable to your business, and you are doing nothing but listening and facilitating a conversation. And so if you do it right, they walk away being like, I didn't know Jeremy from a fly on the wall before we got on this call, but now I really like him. He listened, he heard what I was saying, he pulled some things out of me that maybe I hadn't thought about being brought out of me before. And now I see him in a different light. What a great way to start a relationship with someone in an authentic place. And then you can platform them, right? You get their face on the cover of your show. You get them out there on social media. You put some stuff out there. I mean, you've just teed yourself up to be able to take next steps in the relationship. And no one's better at the next steps part in building relationships than you are, Billy. You can talk about that a lot more than I can. You're so good at taking a relationship from that first little step to just continuing to sort of drip relationships, and not in an inauthentic way, like in a true, obviously we've become friends, but I think you're able to do that on a lot of different levels. And so the podcast isn't, the end all be all, but what a great place to start a relationship with someone.
Yeah, and I appreciate the kind words, number one, and also too, as you talk about it, as a way to gain insight into a marketplace and also to build extend relationships, become that person who is able to connect people, whether it's nationally, whether it's locally. I share that with you. That it's also been a very, very powerful medium to be able to build connection. So speaking of which, and I know we're kind of running out of time here, but there's something that I mentioned in the very beginning, and I would love for you to share with us, because there's this thing kind of going on with your hearing, but I think it has to do with because of a love of music and also service and an entrepreneurial flair that you had early on in life.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
all right.
If you would, because I think it's really interesting, right? Because you're someone who started working at 13 years old, right? Yeah. And I started when I was 12, 13, running, throwing the newspaper and all that other kind of stuff. But what was it that I want you to tell the story about the hearing thing? Because people are probably like, Billy, why do you keep talking about this thing? Because he loves music. Yeah. He's got two groups specifically that he really loves. He can share every single word to certain songs. Yeah. But talk to us about that passion that you had early on at 13 to be able to, listen in your music, serve other people, and make sure that everything was super straight and a nice process.
Yeah, I did try delivering papers for like 2 days. I hated that. I could not do it. It was like too early in the morning, and it just like didn't work. Yeah, but I was growing up in the 80s. I was needing to make money somehow and needing to get out there, and so I started mowing lawns. Just like a lot of people at that age. And I started with just my dad's push mower, and I would go over to the next door neighbor, and pretty quickly I was able to buy like a big walk behind mower. I mean, and so I was walking around the neighborhood riding on one of those little standing sulkies on the back of this mower because I didn't have my license yet because I was wasn't old enough, right. And just mowing all these yards and making a bunch of money. And so I really like started just that idea of walking the street and putting flyers on people's mailboxes, going out there, talking to them, explaining what I could do, coming up with the price, right? In that scenario, it's like, what's the right number to give them? And then ultimately following through on my promise and doing a great job. But during that time, the way way I decided to protect my ears, per se, was to get one of those yellow Walkmans that they had back in the 80s with, putting my tapes in there. And I had, it must have been the late 80s, early 90s, because I had Appetite for Destruction, the Guns N' Roses album, and the Metallica album that had just come out there. And I liked a lot of other bands, but those two albums in particular. And the way to protect my ears was to turn up the music louder than the sound of the trimmer or the mower was making, and so that I could not hear those other sounds because I was blowing my ears out with my music sounds. And so you're correct. One of my ears maybe works 50%. This is another reason I love podcasting, because you have headphones on. You can hear everything really well. I can read lips pretty decent when I'm in group scenarios. But yeah, and that's just where the entrepreneurial spirit started, right? It was like the repetition and beauty of a good striped lawn, and then that cash that they handed you. Both of those things were valuable. And I think it taught me a lot of lessons about how to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that and sharing all of the parts of the story. But it's like you said, like you were able to follow a passion, you were able to provide service, and also in exchange for a role or a job well done, not only making the lines perfectly vertically straight, you were able to exchange currency as a result of that. And the same thing you talked about before, as you had customers and loyal customers because of the service you were providing, the quality of work that you were doing. It gave you some insight into what would later be a way that you would continue to make a positive impact. And speaking of which, in this new phase of the world, there's one question that I really, before we kind of wrap things up, I'd like to ask you, Jeremy, because you were talking about 13-year-old Jeremy. And 13-year-old Jeremy was creating this business, and he did it for a number of years. And before he didn't really know, but he wanted to become a teacher, be able to serve and be able to give back and make a larger impact. And then from there, you also followed another passion to start your own business with your wife, being able to serve local community nationally. The local community is the focus, as you talked about now. But if you would have been able to tell yourself something back in the day in terms of where you would be now, I'm assuming it would have been helpful. So this podcast has now been over 5 years, over 560 some odd episodes at this point in time. And if I could have told myself back then, when 2020, that just to kind of do certain things to get to here now, one, I wouldn't have believed myself, because there's no way I would have thought I would be doing the podcast 5 years later. But I would like to ask you to ask yourself, Jeremy, 3 years from now, because I'd love to have you back on the podcast again. And what is it that you need to tell yourself today so that when we go and listen to it 3 years from now, you're helping yourself to achieve or to transform or to arrive at whatever moment that is? What is the one message that you want to leave for future Jeremy?
Yeah, I think it's trust, but verify. I think that I have never been very good at trusting other people to do things well. It's that idea that, I can do everything myself. I'm a doer. I do have the doer's curse, and I like to be a doer. And my biggest struggle has been being able to hand things off to other people. And those systems have really helped. That gives me the ability to believe that other people can at foundation follow the system, right? And then above that take. And so I hope that looking back to today, 3 years from now, I would say, wow, I've really gotten rid of that doer's curse. I've more and more passed things on to other people. I've figured out how to hire the right people and then make sure that they're doing their job well. I've figured out how to empower them so they feel like owners of the business in some way, shape, or form as well, and elevate the business in that way. I figured out how to celebrate wins better than maybe I'm celebrating wins right now. And ultimately, I figured out how to put myself in the coach position and watch the team do its work. I think there's always work to do on that, but currently I'm the quarterback and the coach, and I think being able to say, hey, I'm not the quarterback anymore, I'm just the coach, would really be the thing that would be celebratory, if that's what I could look back and see.
And so I look forward to us reviewing this 3 years from now and being able to have you in that position where you are celebrating as the coach, understanding that your team continues to make even more impact on a larger level, on a deeper level, to the way that you are making the impact that you want. And so, as always, like I think, man, like we already, like, I can't believe how, like, the time just keeps flying no matter what. It's like you're sharing your story from the very beginning.
We could do this all day, Billy. We could do this all day.
Well, you and I can do this all day. Of course, we will do this all day. Everybody else just has to go away for a little bit. No, hey, I love you. I love you. Don't go. Yeah, but hey, listen, absolutely. It's just one of these things. Yeah. It's a time thing. Yep. No, but from the very beginning, you're talking about, sharing your start in education, sharing salary with us, and also being able to make an impact. And not only were you able to achieve what you wanted to achieve from an education perspective, you then also had a passion project, one that you were and have started 13 years ago with your wife, and you continue to navigate and where the opportunities are so that you can continue to solve problems, whether they be locally, nationally, or locally. Again, you've been super kind, and you've helped us remind ourselves, like when you think about business, because as you continue to look to make this movement towards business ownership, think about those three things that Jeremy talked to you about, which is the marketing, the sales, and the ops. And then from there, understanding the processes. And then from there, to make sure that you are setting up the thing, you're doing the thing, and then you're following up with doing the thing. And then you've got your checklists that are going to help you along the way. Like, you helped us get into the weeds, and you've even been so kind as to share your love for music and all the ways that you were even serving others at the ripe age of 13. And now with your hyper focus on your local community of Bloomington, Indiana, and your super podcast, I know that everybody here wants to know again, hey, Billy, how can we find out more about Jeremy, what he's doing, also what's going on at Shine Insurance Agency? So Jeremy, please share with me and with the entire Going Long family how we can find out more about you and how you're serving the local community.
Yeah, just shineinsurance.com, or on YouTube, it's just the Shine Insurance YouTube channel. And then CRE Clarity is just CREclarity.com. But you can find those things anywhere there. The YouTube channel or shineinsurance.com will give you whatever you need. Obviously, I'm out there on socials, happy to hang out there as well.
All right, perfect. And when you reach out to Jeremy on whatever social platform, when you have the opportunity, make sure that you let him know that you've already invested significant time getting to learn more about him, the way that his company is serving others, his podcast, because it's just going to help the two of you have an even more fluid conversation and continue this one. So, Jeremy, my good friend, it gives me great pleasure to say thank you very, very much for deciding to invest more time with me and the entire Going Long family. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Absolutely, Billy. Love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right. Love you, brother. Listen, Going Long family, thanks so much. Make sure you reach out to Jeremy. Make sure you check out what they've got going on as well at Shine Insurance Agency. And we'll see you on the next episode. Ciao.